In this video, we're reviewing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and showing you how to make an out-of-this-world cocktail called the Forever Sky. Today, on the Martini Shot. Hello and welcome to the Martini Shot, home of movie reviews and movie-themed cocktails. My name is Brandon. Before we get into the review, let's blast off to nowhere with a galactically tantalizing cocktail I've named the Forever Sky. And hey, if you want to see more movie reviews and cocktails, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe if you'd like to help support the channel. I was super excited to make a cocktail for this movie just because I like the challenge of trying to make some type of galactic cocktail. And so for this one that I've aptly named the Forever Sky, a phrase that Rocket and his pals use multiple times throughout the film, which is just a reference to the sky itself and how it goes on forever. Look, they were raised in cages, they don't know much. But when I think of the sky in Guardians of the Galaxy, I think of a very vast, colorful experience that's sparkling with a ton of stars. And to reflect that in this drink, we are going to be using a variety of ingredients with vanilla vodka, blue curacao, elderflower liqueur, and we're also going to be building it as a sour to kind of give it that light fluffiness. And we're also bringing back a very unique ingredient that I've actually already used for two other superhero films, and that is electric dust. If you don't know what electric dust is, it's essentially a product that takes these plants called buzz buttons and turns them into this fine blue sparkly powder that when ingested gives you a nice little tingling sensation on your tongue, very unlike anything else you'll experience. And so naturally, I thought it would be a great fit for a galactic cocktail of this scope. If you want to pick yourself up a little packet of electric dust, I have a link in the description below that you can go ahead and check out. Typically, you can just put it on the rim, but we're actually going to be putting it in the drink itself. And this is actually going to be kind of a two-layered drink that is going to either require two different shakers or for you to clean out one shaker after you use it the first time. It's a little bit of work, but I promise you the end result is definitely worth it. Let's get into it. Like all sours, this is going to be shaken, so go ahead and grab your shaker, and if you happen to have two on hand, go ahead and grab that extra one as well. So this time around, I've decided to opt out the lemon juice for some lime juice, just to make it a little bit more tart rather than sour, just to kind of give it a more unique distinction. And you're gonna be doing 3/4 ounces of lime juice. Next up is a little bit of bartender's ketchup, AKA elderflower liqueur. They call it bartender's ketchup because they say you can put it in anything and it'll make it taste better, which is ironic because I hate ketchup. But I love elderflower, and you're gonna be doing 3/4 ounces. And now for a little bit of blue color, we're gonna be bringing in some blue curacao, and you're gonna do 1/2 ounce. And now for our star spirit, we are going to be using some vanilla vodka, and you're gonna do 2 ounces of the vanilla vodka. And now before we shake, we are going to be adding a bar spoon of the electric dust. If you are able to get your hands on some of this, I do want to warn you that it does stain pretty easily, both skin and furniture, so just be careful with that. And we're going to be adding the electric dust into the drink. You're only going to be doing about 1/2 of a bar spoon. Now go ahead and grab yourself a coupe glass and go ahead and strain. Now, if you watched my videos before, you may be wondering why I left out a pretty critical ingredient for a classic sour, and that would be the egg white. Well, I actually wanted to try something a bit different this time around. I wanted the foam to be a different color from the drink itself. So what I decided to do was take that egg white and add about 3/4 ounces of raspberry liqueur, and then dry shake that so we can have a nice pink froth to go on top of the blue drink. And once you dry shake that, you can go ahead and strain that on top of the cocktail. There you go, and now you have the Forever Sky. That vanilla and lime pairs so well together, and the frothiness of the drink really makes it very dessert-like, but not overtly sugary, and even that elderflower comes through just a little bit. You get a little bit of herbaceousness just kind of on the back end of your taste. And of course the electric dust comes in at the very back, also giving you that nice tingling punch that I think is really pleasant and I think really pairs well with the rest of the flavors working here in this drink. The raspberry adds another little nice sweetness to it that's not too overpowering. And of course, because the electric dust is in the drink itself, it makes it nice and glittery and just beautiful to look at. Very happy with this one. At its core, very simple to make as long as you are willing to put in a little extra effort, which I definitely think pays off in the long run. Now that we have our drink, let's jump straight into the review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. If you've been following this channel for a while, you may have caught on to the fact that I have been stricken with a terrible disease commonly known as superhero movie fatigue. Particularly with Marvel, the movie-making juggernaut that has been struggling to capture my devoted attention in a post-Endgame world. There's been some bright spots in the past few years. Spider-Man No Way Home, Wakanda Forever, and even Multiverse of Madness gave me a bit of enjoyment, but even still, I find it hard to have the same energy for this franchise like I used to. However, the one MCU film I anticipated the most was the third and final installment in the Guardians of the Galaxy series, due in part to a solid track record from director James Gunn. And what a road Gunn has been down. He turned relatively obscure Marvel characters into household names through 2 solid films, got fired from Marvel over some old tweets, was embraced by DC where he produced a fun reboot of the Suicide Squad and a great spin-off TV series, got rehired by Marvel to finish off his Guardians trilogy, and now he's spearheading the future of DC films. Quite a roller coaster. So with such a bright future ahead of him, how does Gunn's goodbye to the MCU fare? Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 aims to have some of the biggest emotional swings in the franchise, and for the most part, it really hits. Gunn's ability to balance heart and humor shines through while also managing to sneak in some darker moments familiar to his work outside of the MCU. The camaraderie between the oddball cast of characters has perhaps never been stronger, each bringing their own quirks and relationships to a story that, while a bit disjointed, left me with the undeniable feeling that the best trilogy in the MCU just ended. In Volume 3, a tragic incident occurs that forces the Guardians on a quest to find the key to saving the life of one of their own. This puts them in the sights of the High Evolutionary, a fanatical scientist hellbound on building the perfect society while showing little empathy for his creations. The journey is filled with fights, flashbacks, quips, questions, and a surprising amount of violence and death for an MCU film, but a little less than the average Gunn film. The Guardians are some of the best characters in the MCU, in my opinion, rivaled only by the original Avengers in charisma and connection. Each character has such a distinct voice and personal dilemma to their being that gives them tons of opportunity to bounce off one another, while mostly achieving believable character progression. The performances are as charming as ever, with each lead cast member given enough room to make an impact at one point or another, varying in size, of course. Chris Pratt's Peter Quill is still the ever-entertaining glue holding the band of misfits together, though his story doesn't really hit the same emotional highs we've seen in previous Guardians films. His mission to regain the love of Zoe Saldana's Gamora, which is actually a different Gamora ripped from a different timeline, at least comes to an amicable conclusion that may surprise you. The other Guardians get some decent progression as well, with Nebula perhaps being one of the more underrated developments across several films. Watching her cold, icy heart slowly melt as she begins to form a family with her team has been a pleasure to watch, due in part to a stoic but still humorous performance from Karen Gillan. But the real centerpiece of the film is Bradley Cooper's Rocket, whose tragic backstory is fleshed out in great detail through numerous flashbacks of his early years. These scenes admittedly deliver some of the heaviest emotional moments of the film, and while I do think they mostly work, I can't help but feel how disconnected they can sometimes be to the main plot and Rocket's journey. Rocket himself is at the center of this film's conflict, but not in a way that really allows the character to grow and change towards a triumph that feels all that compelling. Like I said, the emotional weight behind these flashbacks work, I just wish they tied a bit more directly into the story. I do feel it's worth mentioning the new characters in the High Evolutionary and Adam Warlock. The Evolutionary, played by Chukwudi Iwiji, who you may recognize from Gunn's Peacemaker series, lacks the depth and emotional intricacies of past powerhouse villains, but he more than makes up for it with genuine gravitas and sadistic tendencies. He's a Shakespearean psychopath who is easy to understand despite not really having something to relate to. Then there's Will Poulter's Adam Warlock, who for the most part is kind of just there. The character is a decent enough addition, but his overall impact in the plot feels kind of shoehorned and doesn't really lead to anything all that worthwhile. The galactic side of the MCU has always been one of my favorites, as it allows for a great amount of creativity in the landscapes, creature designs, and other set dressings. And I've got to say, this is certainly one of the better looking films to come out of a post-Endgame MCU. There's some rough spots here and there, but they honestly get overshadowed by the use of practical costumes, prosthetics, and sets. It gives the film a much more tangible appearance despite being fantastical. There's a good chunk of the film spent on a planet inhabited by human-animal hybrids, which is all realized by makeup and prosthetics. I really do appreciate the extra care going into something like this, and more instances of creative care can be found throughout the film. There's plenty of instances of being playful with color and shapes as well in the set design and costumes that I've honestly just come to expect from a director like Gunn, who makes these decisions feel purposeful. A few more Gunnisms to expect with these films is his choice of music and his writing style. While I don't know if this soundtrack of classic pop and rock hits is as memorable as those from the previous films, there's still some pretty solid moments here. Beastie Boys' No Sleep Till Brooklyn may not be the most original inclusion, but it does lead to a pretty solid one-take action sequence whose melding of CGI and physical performances is admittedly impressive. And Florence and the Machine's Dog Days Are Over is used in a, albeit super cheesy but incredibly fitting moment that I couldn't help but smile at. Gunn's writing is known for his offbeat humor and underlying darkness, and man is the latter not as underlying this time around. And look, this isn't exactly Martyrs or Ichi the Killer, but for an MCU film, I think this does tread the line on whether or not kids should be watching this. There is a surprising amount of death and violence here, some that's kind of telegraphed and some that genuinely took me by surprise. It really felt like Gunn was looking to close this chapter of his career with a bang, and I gotta say, it's fairly effective. Even without the violence, Gunn aims to really hit you hard with the film's emotional moments, mostly involving Rocket. They're sad and heartbreaking because they involve animals, and they're sure to hit home with a lot of people, but I'd be lying if it didn't feel a tad bit manipulative at times. Not to a point where it's gross or anything, but without getting into spoilers, there's a character that constantly repeats a line that might as well have just been, "Gee, I sure hope nothing bad happens to us," because it honestly would have been just as predictable. Luckily, Gunn's humor continues to be a strong point of these movies, and while not every joke lands, I still felt like I left satisfied with what made the Guardians stand out the most for me. Now we're at the end of the road. Gunn's admirable journey of turning nobodies into full-fledged icons has more than solidified himself as a competent director, as well as a believable admirer of the medium of comics. I think he's shown a great understanding in what works from these histories and what doesn't, embracing the goofiness of it all while still finding ways to humanize these modern myths in ways that will stick with us forever. I'm admittedly sad to see these characters' stories end, but I'm glad Gunn got to deliver the ending he wanted, while the future of DC Comics looks brighter than ever with him at the helm. While not my favorite of the trilogy, I'm happy with this conclusion, even if Marvel may become desperate in the near future and pull out these characters once again for a cheap pop. But until that day comes, see ya, Space Cowboys. For my rating, I am giving this film 3.5 blurps out of 5. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Martini Shot. If you saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. And if you like what you saw here and would like to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me across all social media channels. Those links are down in the description below. And if you enjoy movie reviews and movie-themed cocktails, be sure to check out my website, martinishot.blog. Until next time, thank you again for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Live deliciously, but please remember to drink responsibly.